By the way, stress is good for us. Like if we get rid of all stress, we just become like these blobby amoebas, and that's not good, right? Like we're not going to live very long. And if you don't believe that, think about astronauts coming back from space. They are health dumpster fires. Their bone density has decreased. Their immune systems are compromised. This is just from the lack of gravity. So stress is good for us. So you think about that beautiful, we'll go with Texas prairie since we're both in Texas, and that gentle rain is the stress, the good stress, the appropriate amount of stress to make sure that that prairie flourishes, right? You need stress. But what happens when you get this peak of stress, when you get this deep, dark cloud over the prairie, pouring rain, a stream into one spot? Like that's going to start impinging, that's going to start making a mud hole, that's going to start doing damage. And that's where we think this ESS60 molecule comes in.
Welcome to the Natural Health Rising podcast, where I challenge the outdated medical model and empower you with the knowledge to heal naturally. I'm Rachel Smith, a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner who has helped hundreds of people eliminate symptoms of autoimmune diseases and mystery illnesses naturally. On this show, I dive into the real reasons behind health challenges, covering topics like gut health, toxins, nutrition, relationships, stress, and everything in between. My goal is to empower you, provide you with effective holistic health tips, and help you rise up to your healthiest, happiest self. Welcome to the Natural Health Rising podcast. Today I have Chris Burres with me. Chris is the founder and chief scientist at MyVitalC, where he manufactured a Nobel Prize-winning molecule responsible for the single longest longevity experimental result in history, a full 90% extension of life. He is also a published author, host of the Uncovering the Secrets to Longevity Health Summit, a podcast host, patent holder, and master of comedy improv. He is the intersection where science meets laughter, and his life's mission is to help people live longer, healthier, happier, and pain-free lives with science. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Rachel, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to dive in. What I get to do every day is be really geeky, like this geeky scientist that sits in front of you. And it's through podcasts like yours that I get to continue to do that. So thank you.
Of course, I'm excited to hear all the geeky science today. I would love to hear what inspired you to get into longevity research.
Wow. To say that I was drug kicking and screaming would be a slight exaggeration, right? So the reality is I've been manufacturing a molecule since 1991, and we can talk about that molecule a little bit. But that molecule they thought would be toxic. You mentioned kind of in the intro. Instead of being toxic, the test subjects that they gave it to, in this case it was Wistar rats, lived 90% longer than the control group. So the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history, peer-reviewed published research, is because of this molecule I've been manufacturing since 1991. I'm very proud to share that my lab provided the material in that original study, and my lab is actually mentioned in that original study. It still took us a while after that study came out, and maybe we'll talk about that, but that's kind of the long and short of how I ended up in this space. A molecule I've been manufacturing forever, we're going on 34 years now, is responsible for that 90% extension of life in Wistar rats, and that's the long and short of how I ended up here.
Okay. Was that the initial intention of developing that molecule, or what was the backstory behind that?
That's okay. So let's get into the nitty gritty. So what we're talking about is this molecule. If you're listening, I'm holding up a model of a molecule, and the best way to imagine it, because it doesn't look like any molecule you've ever seen before, the best way to imagine it is to imagine a soccer ball where the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. So you have a spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms in the shape of a soccer ball. The molecule was discovered in 1985 at Rice University here in Houston, and the three scientists who discovered it actually won the Nobel Prize for that discovery in 1996. So a short 11 years from being discovered to being awarded the Nobel Prize. My company, as I mentioned, started manufacturing this in 1991, so a full 5 years before they were awarded the Nobel Prize. As with so many discoveries, it was an accidental discovery. I actually talk about that in my book, Live Longer and Better, which is really about the discovery of that molecule and how that molecule kind of ended up in the health space. The reason they won the Nobel Prize is because, first, it's the first closed cage molecule that was ever discovered. They've discovered more since then, but this is a closed cage molecule. It's very unique because it doesn't have dangling ends for you to bond stuff on. It's literally closed cage. Doesn't mean it can't bond, but there is no dangling end on this. So it's the first one of those. There's actually a new symbol in chemistry because of this molecule. You're familiar with the @ symbol, right, from your email address. Now, if you say, lanthanum at this ESS60 molecule, then what you're actually saying is lanthanum physically trapped on the inside of this soccer ball-shaped molecule. So not covalently bonded to the exterior, not ionically bonded, physically trapped. So that's a new symbol in chemistry. I think that's one of the ways you know you're going to win a Nobel Prize, when they have to add a new symbol to the language of chemistry. Those scientists kind of knew, all right, we're on our way. And like I said, we have been manufacturing it for 5 years before they won the Nobel Prize. The way I described the molecule early on, really until probably 2013, was this molecule, and it's still true, but this molecule performs as well or better than the current best material in almost every application. So it makes better inks, better batteries, better tires, better photocells, and this is where the health conscious people are like, wait, is this what are we talking about? I didn't wake up today and look at my car and think of what components of my car battery I should be taking on a daily basis for my health. Like, these are industrial applications. How do we get to health? And then we don't have to do a spoiler alert because it's already been spoiled, but they did think the molecule would be toxic, right? The exterior of this cage has 20 shapes that are the same as benzene, and because of that, they thought it would be toxic. Now, benzene is ubiquitous in our society. It's necessary for modern society. If you want some evidence of that, just kind of glance around you and look at everything that's plastic and imagine it gone, because the foundational molecule is the benzene ring. Many medications are based on the benzene ring, including aspirin, detergents. Many of them are based on them. Like, it's ubiquitous in our society. And it's necessary for modern society. But benzene, when it's on its own, so not bonded with other things, benzene is known to be toxic and known to be carcinogenic. So 20 of those things scared these scientists. They thought it would be toxic, and they put it in that amazing toxicity study. And I'll tell a little bit, because your audience might appreciate that. That study comes out in mid-2012. By about mid-2013, we start getting phone calls from this crazy, wacky group of people called biohackers, which I can say affectionately now because I am a biohacker now. But they called us and they said, hey, that stuff where the rats live 90% longer, like, how much should I be consuming? And you have to think about my business partner and I, where we've got our conservative carbon nanomaterials scientist hats on. And what we heard was this scary question, hey, that stuff that you sell to research institutions around the world to put into inks, batteries, tires, and photocells, how much of that stuff should we be consuming? And my business partner and I came to the same conclusion. We thought the answer should be zero, right? Like, it's inks, batteries, tires, photocells, right? The data was clear. It was safe, right? Including this study where the rats live 90% longer. But we're conservative carbon nanomaterial scientists. We add not for human consumption to our labeling in mid-2013. So you think about discovery in 85, Nobel Prize 96, all the way to 2013. We don't have to have not for human consumption on our labeling. Finally add it in mid-2013. And that turned into another set of circumstances. We're getting 2 to 3 calls a week that sound kind of like this. Hey, Chris, my knee pain is gone. Hey, Joe, you mean the knee pain of your rat, right? Because it literally says not for human consumption on the labeling. Yeah. Hey, if my rat weighs 275 pounds and does HIIT training on Tuesdays and Thursdays, should they double up their dose on those Tuesdays and Thursdays, right? So we know what's going on, and we still have not for human consumption on the labeling, but we allowed it because the literature was clear, right? Like, so we're playing this, we're trying to, I wish I could say I was a genius. I knew right away this was going to be an amazing supplement. And as soon as that study came out, we launched a supplement. I'm not that bright. I wish I was. We'd be ahead of the game here. So I'll kind of wrap up this story because you probably have things, I've been talking a long time. My business partner and I get together every quarter, and we're asking ourselves, do we want to get into the supplement industry? And I think it's fair to say you're in the space. I think it's generous to say that the supplement industry is challenged, right? It's very different than delivering commercial quantities of carbon nanomaterials to research institutions around the world. The supplement space is not that space. And in fact, between 2013 and the end of 2017, when we really started bringing this to market, I found a peer-reviewed published research paper that said that 50% of the supplements that this research group purchased off the market didn't have in them what they say they have in them. So this is like the earmarks of a challenged industry. Every quarter we're getting together. We don't want to get into this industry. Finally, at the latter part of 2017, a guy with a big YouTube following, that's how everything happens these days, started talking about all the benefits he gets taking it on a daily basis. And then our phone went from ringing 2 to 3 times a week to 10 times a day. My business partner, like, this is an opportunity bigger than we realized. We looked back at that paper where 50% of the supplements on the market didn't have in them what they said they had in them. And we're like, we're a lab. We're the oldest and longest manufacturer and distributor of this molecule on the planet. We're in a position to deliver a high quality product. We know that bad things are going to happen in the space because that's what happens in almost every supplement space. So we're, that's why we ultimately said yes. And then we asked ourselves 2 questions. The first is a moral question. Are we comfortable selling it? So I take it, my wife takes it, everybody on our team takes it. But by the way, that's not a requirement to work here. We do not like clock in and then give them a shot of our product, which is, they don't have to take a shot of our olive oil with ESS60. They just have access to the research. And frankly, more importantly, they have access to the customer testimonials. So everybody here takes it. So yes, we are morally very comfortable selling it. And then from the legal perspective, you've got the FDA and the FTC. You got to cross those T's, dot those I's, which suck. It's a pain, but we cross the T's, we dot the I's, and that's when we really started bringing this product to market.
So have you since then done human studies, or is this all based upon these people telling you their experiences of taking your product?
Yeah, so some of it, let's be realistic. A lot of it and a lot of kind of very specifics where we see testimonials come in are from testimonials. We have done a small scale sleep study. We are the only group that I'm aware of in this space that has done any sort of study. And then, typically supplement companies don't do research and then they don't publish that research. And I'll tell you, the reason they don't is they have a story and the story works, right? And if they go do research and the research doesn't confirm the story, then their story falls apart and they morally should stop selling it, and they rather not be put into that position. I'm very different, right? If you think about the course of our study, happy-go-lucky carbon nanomaterial scientist, not interested in the supplement space, kind of forced into this supplement space by our customers and this YouTuber, this popular YouTuber talking about all the benefits he was getting. And so I don't have a particular attachment to this from the perspective of I went into a lab and I figured out how to extend the life of Wistar rats and to get all these amazing testimonials. I'd rather know the truth. And if the truth is this doesn't do anything, which I don't think is true, but if that's the truth, I'd rather go on with my life and do something of value. That's more interesting to me. So that's one of the reasons we're a little bit different. We published a paper last year. We published a paper this year, last year in May, this year in June. And the study that I mentioned, the sleep study, was born out of our most consistent testimonial, right? So our most consistent testimonial is people take the product in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. Now, that's fantastic. And when I say fantastic, I mean really, really weird. Because there's really nothing that you can take in the morning that I'm aware of. People have suggested, I think the closest was, ashwagandha will do that. And then I talked with a kind of an Ayurvedic expert, and they're like, yeah, well, yes, but you have to take the ashwagandha in the morning to get focus and energy during the day, and then you have to take it again at night in order to have it have a positive impact on your sleep. It's not taken in the morning positively impacting sleep. Because of that, I actually ended up on a phone call with a Oura Ring consultant, Dr. Benjamin Smar. I think he's doctor, but let's just say he's not. So a Benjamin Smar, who's a consultant for Oura Ring and an assistant professor, so he's probably a doctor, out of UC California, not Berkeley, but San Diego. And so we started talking. We were working on a sleep study. This was pre-pandemic, obviously a long time ago. And it turns out the Oura Ring's pretty good at identifying COVID. It can see those spikes in temperatures, so it knows it's coming. He disappeared. Even though he disappeared, we continued this study, and it's a crossover study. So what that means is we surveyed people about their sleep for 10 days prior to taking the product, and then 10 days when they were on the product, 10 days back off the product, and 10 days back on the product. And 100% of the participants, it's only 10 right now. We're working on that. I've just hired somebody on the team to get focused on that. But 100% of the participants have reported improvements in sleep while they're on the product. That doesn't surprise me at all, again, because our most consistent testimonial involves sleep. We are currently working on an ad hoc study for hsCRP. That's high sensitivity C-reactive protein. It's an inflammatory marker. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit. Continuing to do that sleep study. And recently we're starting a migraine study. And the migraine study is pretty fascinating. It's born out of, all of these studies are born out of anecdotes, right? What's the data coming in? What are people saying? And honestly, it was about 3 weeks ago that I got such a powerful testimonial about migraines, and I'll talk about it. But first, my story with migraines is I am the geeky guy sitting in front of you. I have a spreadsheet back to 2014 tracking my migraines. I used to get 4 to 5 migraines per year. I have a spreadsheet because I'm like, did I drink too much? Did I have a fight with my girlfriend? Did I exercise? What is causing these damn things? Because I don't know if you've ever had migraines. But they suck. Like they're really bad, the kind where you have to go into your room, no light, no sound, right? So I'm trying to figure out what's causing them. When I started taking the product in 2018, I didn't get a single migraine for 18 months. So I should have had 6 or 7 at that point. Now I get them about 1 or 2 a year. But they're very different. So in my case, I'll just describe this. So they've gone from, be in bed, lights out, no sound, to I get what's called an aura, right? So it's a little sliver of my vision that looks like a kaleidoscope. It starts on the periphery, comes into the center of my vision. So I can't I can't read in the middle of a migraine, but I can record a podcast. I can actually still function. And so it's a night and day response to what I had, right? So that's me. And then recently I interviewed with Ashley. Her first name's Ashley. She has a podcast. And we did a second podcast with her. And the second podcast, almost a third of the second podcast was her sharing her experience with her husband's migraine. He had migraines. He had such tough, by the way, I'm not making any claims about migraines. We have research to do to be able to make claims. In fact, all throughout, the FDA has not evaluated our product. It is not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease. I look forward to one day where I have a product that says migraines on it, but we need to do research in order to assess, to be able to do that. I'm just describing why we're doing migraine research. The level of his migraines were so bad, it was like they just ran their life around it, right? Like, is today going to be a good day? Is it going to be a bad day? If they kicked in, then there was nothing that they could do. And she spent 1/3 of the second podcast just talking about how it helps when they get triggered, right? As something that can help by taking it every day. The significance, the quantity of the migraines has gone down significantly. I've got my wife's test. I won't get anything anymore. We have enough other testimonials, but that was the one that kind of smacked me. Again, I wish I was smarter. I should have started a migraine trial like more than 2 years, like when I realized that mine were gone, like in 2019 is when I should have started it because of the impact on mine. But it smacked me in the face enough, so now we're actually starting a migraine trial.
That's really exciting. I know from my perspective with functional medicine, a lot of times migraines, it can be so many different root causes, but it might be mold or some sort of toxin exposure. It might be actually someone being gluten sensitive or having another food sensitivity, or maybe they're just really dehydrated and have some other inflammation and things going on in their body. So what do you think the mechanism of action is in the body with this molecule being able to come in and do these very different things, from supporting migraines to joint health to longevity. Like, what is actually going on in the body?
Yeah. So in the beginning of 2018, my role shifts from the chief scientist of a carbon nanomaterial manufacturing business to the chief scientist of a supplement company. And so some of my roles were like figure out how the FDA and the FTC works. So that was a lot of fun. And then one of my roles was what's going on here, right? Like, why did these rats live longer? And we pretty early on had this consistent testimonial of sleep. And the reality is if you improve your sleep, you will improve your mental, physical, and emotional well-being, right? Like that's just straight up. It's very interesting. We are the only species on the planet that will forego sleep for no reason. I kind of describe us, even us, biohackers and kind of health conscious people. I mean, there's some people who are strict. Brian Johnson, certainly very strict with his sleep. But most people are like, yeah, sleep. Oh, it's so important. Like, you have to get your sleep. Like, it's good for your emotional, physical, mental well-being. Like, have to get it, unless you have something else to do. Right? Like, that's kind of the mindset. It's like, well, unless I got something else to do, I'll do something else. We're the only species on the planet that will forego sleep for no actual purpose, right? It should be for the purpose of mates, and that may be some of it. Let's be realistic. Out late dancing, whatever. Maybe for the purpose of getting food. Yeah, that's not it. And then actually running away from predators, right? So we don't have to really worry about that anymore. So we're that only species. It's so important that if all we did was improve sleep, then great. Like, we could hang our hat on that. The next, my mindset was, okay, well, these rats live 90% longer. Is this a big deal? Turns out it is. It's intuitively, it is, because nobody's out there advertising anything that will extend your life. The next best way to extend your life is calorie restriction. If you reduce your calorie consumption by 30%, you can extend your life by 30%. This is done in multiple animal models. It's kind of the foundation of why we believe intermittent fasting would be of value. I call it the starve yourself 1/3 to death diet. Nobody signs up for that diet. Maybe they need a new marketing company. I don't know. Even if you give them a free sweater, because you're going to be cold if you're eating 1/3 of the. By the way, it's 1/3 less of what you're supposed to be eating, not what you're eating on your American diet, right? Like it's where are you supposed to be, cut back that from 1/3. And that's only 30%. This is 90%. Remember, we are talking about an animal study. We are talking about very specific cancer-prone rat and the impact there, and I'll talk about that probably here in a second. When we think about this 90% extension of life, I'm like, hey, what does the medical community think about aging? Like, what are the mechanisms of aging? They tend to think, not all of them, but they tend to think it's an oxidation and an inflammation process, right? There's even a word called inflammaging, this, conflagrate, like combining of inflammation and aging. So when you think about antioxidant, there's an ad hoc study out on the web showing us to be 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. And then peer-reviewed published research showing us to be 125 times more powerful than vitamin C. So I'm in Texas, we're in Texas, big old check mark next to antioxidant, right? Mm-hmm. When it comes to inflammation, I have to be very careful because the FDA equates conversations about chronic inflammation with the diseases of inflammation, which are also the diseases of aging, arthritis, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, cancers. So if I come on your podcast and I say, hey, we address chronic inflammation, what the FDA hears is me claiming that I cure cancer, cardiovascular disease, cancer. We're not saying that. There is so much more research that needs to go into understanding that and to be able to make those claims. What the FDA will allow us to say is that we address information related to exercise-induced inflammation. So we've all had a tough workout or even just walked farther than normal and woken up with that sense of inflammation in our body. We do address that type of inflammation. And then that kind of leads really into the more, maybe if you have any questions, I've got our boss theory is where we've kind of landed now in terms of the mechanisms of action.
I would love to hear about the boss theory.
Oh, okay. So BOSS stands for, this is kind of fun. And I have a fun analogy. So we'll get a little geeky and then we'll have a fun analogy that involves Mardi Gras, which is kind of cool. So BOSS theory stands for buffering oxidative stress system. So we know from peer-reviewed published research that this ESS60 molecule, I'm holding up the model again, gets into the mitochondria. We also know from way back in the 90s that this molecule can hold up to 6 negatively charged particles on the exterior of the cage. And here's what we think is going on. So brief refresh: mitochondria, powerhouse of every cell. There's between 50 and 5,000 mitochondria in every cell in your body, except for your blood cells, which have 0, and your brain and neurons, which have 2 million. It is amazing how much energy our nervous system uses relative to our other systems. Like any power source, right? Mitochondria, powerhouse of every cell. There are negative byproducts. You think, we'll go back to the car. The car going down the road has exhaust. That's the negative byproduct. A power plant has a smokestack with smoke coming out of it. That's the negative byproduct. In the case of mitochondria, it's reactive oxygen species. I like to think of these as little bumper cars, if they're left to their own devices, that everything they smack into, they're causing rust, oxidative stress, oxidative damage, ultimately inflammation. And that's where this ESS60 molecule comes in. We know from peer-reviewed published research it's in the mitochondria. We believe when mitochondria get stressed, well, let me kind of roll back. Internal to the mitochondria, there are mechanisms to manage these reactive oxygen species, right? So if you have your mitochondria and you're in kind of some state of homeostasis, you are producing reactive oxygen species, and they're being managed internally by the antioxidants, glutathione and melatonin. I like to kind of pause here. Melatonin, the sleep hormone, our most consistent testimonial, includes sleep. So those manage those reactive oxygen species so they don't run around and do damage. But what happens when you stress your mitochondria? First off, how do you stress your mitochondria? I like to point out, if you live in modern society, you have stressed mitochondria. It can be a workout. It can be that long walk that caused the inflammation. It can be smog, smoking, drinking, tough conversations, life, stress, traffic, whatever. So when you stress your mitochondria, it starts producing extra reactive oxygen species that can't be managed by that glutathione and melatonin. And that's where the ESS60 molecule, we believe, holds on to those extra reactive oxygen species. Again, so they can't run around and do damage. And then when that mitochondria replenishes the glutathione, replenishes the melatonin, then it can manage them properly. So my analogy is, and I think all biological analogies should start with Mardi Gras. It's just so much fun. Also, there's a lot of biology happening at Mardi Gras. So there's that. So it's the end of Mardi Gras. You've got these drunk reactive oxygen species. You're supposed to laugh. We had a conversation before. Mental note, not that funny. All right, so it's the end of Mardi Gras. You've got these drunk reactive oxygen species running around, smacking into, breaking windows, painting cars, whatever. And you've got the New Orleans Police Department, the glutathione and melatonin, coming onto Bourbon Street, handcuffing themselves to those reactive oxygen species and getting them off of Bourbon Street. But what does the New Orleans Police Department do when they get overwhelmed? They take those reactive oxygen species and they stick them in a paddy wagon, right? They attach them to this ESS60 molecule so they can't do damage. And then when you replenish the glutathione and you replenish the melatonin, then they can handcuff themselves to those reactive oxygen species and get them off of Bourbon Street. And that's why we say that the ESS60 molecule is the boss buffering oxidative stress system. The summary of that is we believe we're reducing the negative impact of stressed mitochondria. And if you reduce the negative impact of stressed mitochondria, you should have what we have, which is head-to-toe testimonials.
So do you know how long the ESS60 would hold on to those reactive oxygen species? Because what if somebody is chronically ill and very depleted in their glutathione stores and melatonin, and they're just kind of a mess? Like, is there a time frame where this is going to be released? How does that work?
So there's a couple things there. And this starts getting into potentially, the next theory, which is, do we, in the case, right, where the mitochondria doesn't actually replenish the glutathione and replenish the melatonin, right, in these challenging cases, does that ESS60 molecule get excreted with the reactive oxygen species attached? Now, this is highly possible. What we currently believe, though, is it just gives you breathing room. I've got another analogy. Doesn't involve Mardi Gras, I'm sorry. I like to think of our physiology as like a prairie, right? Beautiful prairie grasses, prairie flowers. By the way, stress is good for us. Like if we like get rid of all stress, we just become like these blobby amoebas, and that's not good, right? Like we're not going to live very long. And if you don't believe that, think about astronauts coming back from space. They are health dumpster fires. Their bone density has decreased. Their immune systems are compromised. This is just from the lack of gravity. So stress is good for us. So you think about that beautiful, we'll go with Texas prairie since we're both in Texas, and that gentle rain is the stress, the good stress, the appropriate amount of stress to make sure that that prairie flourishes, right? You need stress. But what happens when you get this peak of stress, when you get this deep, dark cloud over the prairie, pouring rain, a stream into one spot? Like that's going to start impinging, that's going to start making a mud hole, that's going to start doing damage. And that's where we think this ESS60 molecule comes in.
I want to take a moment to introduce you to a powerful resource that could transform your health. If you or someone you love is battling an autoimmune disease, or if you're plagued by unexplained symptoms like brain fog, chronic fatigue, digestive issues, or joint pain, then I have a webinar that is crafted specifically for you. This free webinar will reveal the top 4 mistakes that might be keeping you stuck and unwell. And more importantly, it will guide you through what you should be doing differently. From identifying the right lab tests that will reveal the actual causes of your symptoms to the immediate nutrition and lifestyle changes that can help. This webinar is packed with valuable, actionable insights that can seriously change your life. So don't miss out on this opportunity to start feeling vibrant and healthy again. Click the link in the show notes to sign up or visit naturalhealthrising.net/webinar. That's naturalhealthrising.net/webinar to change your life today.
Right? I picture it as a sponge between that deep dark cloud and the prairie, absorbing that stream. Now it is important, right? If you don't manage that stress, eventually the sponge fills up, eventually it pours back onto the prairie, eventually it continues to do damage. But it gives you breathing room so that you can manage that stress. Now, once that deep dark cloud is gone, I kind of picture you can squeeze this sponge across that prairie and everything is good without doing any damage. One of the testimonials that is, it's extreme and supports this kind of prairie theory, also the boss theory, is from a guy named Anthony Kunkel. He's a 2-time U.S. ultra running champion. So he won a U.S. championship at 50 miles and at 50K. And when I had my first conversation with him, it was pretty fantastic. He started off by saying, "Hey, Chris, I was taking 1 serving of your product. I didn't really notice anything." And then I joke, like all good biohackers, he tripled the serving. By the way, there are things, do not triple servings. Like if you're playing around with rapamycin, don't triple that, right? There are lots of things that you should not triple. It's okay with this one. He tripled the serving, and his statement was, "I think your product could be the difference between somebody having running as a hobby and having running as a career." Like it's that impactful for him.
Wow.
He went on to say, "I don't believe that your product speeds exercise recovery. I believe it prevents damage in the first place." That sounds kind of like the sponge blocking the stress. I mean, this guy's running 120 miles a week. He has deep, dark clouds most days, right?
Yeah.
He went on to say, "The reason I think that it's preventing damage in the first place is on the last 5 miles of a 50-mile run where," by the way, a phrase you probably, I don't know who you travel with, but Anthony is the only one I ever hear. "The last 5 miles of a 50-mile run where strength and stability were previously a problem, they're no longer a problem," right? This sounds exactly like the prairie example that I gave. So I think in your case, if you've got somebody who's compromised, right, and they're struggling with glutathione and potentially melatonin, you want to be figuring out how to kind of build up those reservoirs. Actually, you don't really store those as reservoir. That's one of the challenges here, right? Like you've got this beautiful prairie setting. You don't have a pile of glutathione sitting there waiting for you to get stressed and to throw it at the right. Your mitochondria has to fire up that glutathione manufacturing plant in order to manage those reactive oxygen species. This is that bucket that holds those stress reactive oxygen species, and then when you do replenish the glutathione, it comes off. Now, let's say you don't. There is reason to assume, we understand that this molecule stays in your system about 10 days. That's what the research shows. That's actually what our testimonials show, right? Like my testimonial from my business coach is kind of fun. He said that for 50 years he needed an alarm clock to wake up. When he started taking this product, he wakes up before the alarm clock. Now, he's a business coach, so he is, out having wine, late dinners, business schmoozing, whatever. So none of that matters. He wakes up before the alarm clock. And he also shares that if I don't get product to him, right, if I don't see him, I don't get him product, after about 10 days, he needs the alarm clock again. So that kind of conforms the data that's in the literature that this molecule is excreted at about 10 days. So hopefully that answered your question.
It did, yeah. Now I'm curious, do you ever experiment with stacking glutathione and melatonin with this?
Yeah, I haven't myself. I was lucky I got to interview Dr. Nayan Patel with Aura Wellness. I don't know if you've interviewed him. He's got a topical glutathione, which is an interesting technology. Melatonin, I think I saw you have on your website, melatonin, and you probably know this. You need to be careful with melatonin, right? There's a great book, maybe you've read it, Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker. It's a fantastic book. Yeah, for anyone who hasn't read it, go read it. Just know it's the scariest book about sleep that you will ever read. I call it the Freddy Krueger of sleep books. Remember Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street? He used to scare you out of your dreams. This book will scare you into your dreams because it's terrifying what happens to us when we don't sleep properly. And he talks about, and this is where I learned, that's where I learned that melatonin is the firing gun telling your physiology to get ready to go to sleep. Right? So if you dose it too high, or if you dose it at the wrong time, the last thing you want is at 1 o'clock in the morning, your physiology going, hey, let's get ready to go to sleep. No, like at that point, you should be asleep and staying asleep. So you do need to be careful with melatonin. I think you're going to, and you don't have to just use melatonin for that. It's a great antioxidant, as evidenced by the fact that it's one of the key antioxidants in the mitochondria. So the short answer is I actually have used Aura Wellness's topical glutathione from time to time, not consistently enough to notice, but we are considering kind of combining them, right? Because if you think about, well, here you get back to the same position. I get back to the same position that your body doesn't store glutathione in preparation of stressful events, right? It's good at managing glutathione, and as long as your peaks and valleys in terms of stress and the amount of ATP energy that your cells need is within range, then your body's really good at that. And very few reactive oxygen species get out to do damage. But it's when you ramp it up quickly, right, or it's ongoing and it's a stress that's higher than your mitochondria can handle, that's when your glutathione gets depleted. So I think even Dr. Patel talks about how the value of a glutathione IV, right, you can go get a glutathione IV, but its efficacy is, in the realm of hours because your body just doesn't store it. So I think, if you have clients that are struggling with like glutathione, with energy production, with mitochondrial health, I would do both.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are the main drivers of aging?
So, well, I think the main driver is this inflammation, right? This inflammaging. There are so many factors. Wow, that I don't talk about that kind of so broadly as much. So let's roll up our sleeves and dig in. I think I have a good idea of how to counteract those. Like our body is continuously in a balance of, are we gonna grow or are we gonna clean house, right? Right. So this is related to like our AMPK. This is related. I'm actually putting together a presentation right now, so some of this is on the top of my head. So really, what's going on? We live in an era where I just did this number. We used to eat, I think it was about 8 pounds of sugar per year back in the 1900s. We're at 150 pounds now. Like our bodies were never designed to process sugar at this rate. I mean, even 8 was probably higher than we would normally get. And so we're continually, our bodies, like resources are abundant. We should be growing. We should be multiplying our cells. And that sounds all good, except there is this process where cells go senescent, right? Where cells go to a point, they're called zombie cells, where they're floating around, it's liver, kidney, heart, whatever cell, and it's no longer doing its job. And it would be bad enough if it wasn't doing its job and it was taking resources. Like this just sounds like a disaster, but it's much worse than that. These are the cells that emit inflammatory cytokines, inflammatory markers, and cause your body to go into an inflamed state. I think inflammation is the biggest driver of aging, and it's important for us to be cycling. That's why intermittent fasting is so good in the right state, right? I know women need to be very careful with cycles. Men need to be less careful, but you've got to make sure that you're doing intermittent fasting right. But you want to get your body to the point where like, hey, resources aren't abundant. And resources aren't abundant, we need to look internally and clean house. We need to get rid of these senescent cells. It's called apoptosis or autophagy. We need to go after these cells that are not only are they taking resources and not doing their job, they're actually emitting these inflammatory markers that actually ultimately cause damage. So that I believe that's the biggest one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, just to follow up on your fasting and cycling, I definitely do that. I learned the hard way when I was young. This was like a decade ago.
You're a go person.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when I was 10 years ago, when I started hearing fasting on podcasts, I was fasting all the time. This was also when I was really sick, and it actually made me lose my cycle for about 3 years. And I think it was a combination of that plus stress and other health issues going on. But now what I do is, if I'm going to do any longer fasting, it's only in the follicular phase, and just kind of stick to like your average 12 hours overnight, really simple. Otherwise, yeah, if you're a cycling woman out there, you want to be really careful with that part.
Yeah, it's interesting because some people are like, oh, great, Chris talked or whoever talked about autophagy and getting rid of senescent cells. That sounds great. But you have to realize that fasting is a stress, right?
Yes.
And fasting is a dark cloud over that prairie, right? Like it serves a purpose, right? But it is a dark cloud over that prairie. And so you need to be really careful with it. I can tell you, I just got off of, I was at an event in Scottsdale and then followed by an event in Miami, and I'm in the middle of this longevity fast track course that I'm teaching, and I was like, let me back off the workouts. Like, let me ease up on my workouts. Let me ease up on my fasting, right? So started having breakfast more because I know that I'm going into this period of 3 weeks where I've got some serious stress, like serious things that I need to get done. And you need to be mindful of that, right? The work is a stress. Kids are a stress. Trust me, I have two 15-year-old twins. They're a stress. We had a stressful morning. Just like off the top of my head. And, a spouse can be a stress. Like, hopefully, mostly they're not a stress, but there's times where they're going to be. Like, and you need to be aware of the big picture of what the stress looks like. Working out, you absolutely need to do it, but you also need to be mindful that it's a stress. So, yeah, I think you really need to be aware, and I'm glad that you were able to figure that out. And I think there's a lot more people, I've had a lot more, like, I'm a guy, and I kind of knew that, because I've had a lot more conversations with people who are out there sharing a lot more information about how women's cycles have an impact. No big surprise, right? And if you think about your cycle going away, that is your body saying, I'm under so much stress, I can't even think about having a kid. Like yep. Physiologically, like that's off the table. We got to do other stuff first, and then we can get back to it.
Yep, absolutely. If you think about infertility in general, all those stories of people who trying, so stressed about having a baby, and then as soon as they stop trying and being so stressed about it, what happens? They get pregnant, their hormones get better. So yeah, stress is such a massive inflammatory agent and can cause a lot of health issues with our bodies.
For sure.
Are there any myths about aging and longevity that have been debunked, or maybe in the supplement realm? I know you also talked about how we have to be very careful with supplements. Like, there's a lot of people making crazy claims out there. If you buy supplements from certain online stores, maybe I shouldn't say the name of them, they could easily be fake.
I will.
Okay. Go for it.
Yeah. So, if you think about, the supplement industry is challenged, right? And it can be frustrating because like you and me are constantly reading like, oh, there's a new molecule, urolithin A. Like, where can I get
Yep.
urolithin A? Right? It looks amazing. And then you're like, yeah, but I want a reasonably priced and good source, right? And I say reasonably. I don't say cheap, right? Like I'm not going for the cheapest source of any molecule, whether it's NMN, whether it's, any other NAD precursors, NR. Like, I'm not going for the cheapest source. That's not a smart strategy. And a lot of people will go to Amazon and they'll look at this star rating, right? These 5-star ratings. But what is a 5-star rating about? I will take a kind of classic example about vitamin C mean. Right? Think about what does a 5-star rating of acetaminophen, right? Vitamin C mean. Here's what we can be pretty sure it doesn't mean. They don't have a scientific scale, and they didn't confirm that the tablets were 1 gram each. So they didn't weigh them. They certainly didn't crush them up and stick them in an HPLC and confirm that it was ascorbic acid. They didn't send it off for heavy metals testing. They probably didn't even count the tablets. That's the easiest thing you could do. Like, it said 80 tablets or 90 tablets. They didn't dump them out and count them. Like, as long as the bottle's mostly full, they're like, that's probably. I joke that a 5-star review about a supplement on Amazon means only that Amazon harassed them and they didn't die before they left the review. Like, that's the rock bottom. The bad news about supplements is you have to do more research, right? You need to dig in. You need to roll up your sleeves. I would not go for the least expensive provider in anything that I'm going to stick in my body. I'm also not saying like you have to go to the most expensive, but you need to find the company. You need to dig into them. You probably need to have somebody like you who digs, like this is what you do regularly, where you're digging into these supplements and trying to understand the owners and potentially interviewing the owners, right? And going like, this is like one owner. I wouldn't buy from them. And then another owner's like, hey, they have a good head on their shoulders. They're doing things the right way. Lean on those experts, but you've got to do more research to find out where you should get supplements from. And it's a sad story, right? I wish I could just say, yeah, go on Amazon and hit the 5-star. I don't think that's a good strategy.
Yeah, this could actually be fake reviews. So one thing people can do is reach out to companies and ask them for their COA or their certificate of analysis to see what's going on in their products. And you guys provide that for people if they ask for it, correct?
Absolutely.
Amazing.
I mean, we're unique. There's a space, right, that we kind of distinguish ourselves from, but we tested 22 of the products in that space. They were woefully low in concentration. And I'll tell you why I think they were low in concentration. In the original study out of the University of Paris, they used an Erlenmeyer flask, right? So that's the kind of triangular flask. And they mixed this ESS60 powder with olive oil, a high quality extra virgin olive oil, for 3 weeks to get to maximum concentration. By the way, 3 weeks is a long time. If you were to wake up and say, I want to make money with supplements, you would not choose the supplement that takes 3 weeks to make. You would choose the supplement that takes minutes to make, right? But that's, again, it ended up here accidentally, not on purpose. What we found is as we went from this 1 liter Erlenmeyer flask to 10, 100, 1,000 liter containers, the fluid dynamics was such that you actually take 3 weeks, not 2 weeks. So I think there are other companies that don't have the testing equipment in-house, right? When you don't have the testing equipment in-house, it's an expense. Like every time you send a sample out, it's going to cost you $150 to $300. And that hurts, right? If you're a business owner, you're like, I want to try not to spend that. I think that's why they didn't have it. So we are the company that is the oldest and longest manufacturer and distributor of this molecule on the planet. We have the equipment in-house, and we're the ones who actually tested our batch multiple times. Think about if you're trying to ramp up a bigger manufacturing process, and now you have to take a sample every day. You don't even get the results for 4 days. Like, you're just not going to do it. And we think they didn't do it, and so they had a low concentration. And so that is some of it. Having the fact that we're really science first and then supplement second it's an extreme advantage that we have.
So if someone's listening to this podcast right now and they're wondering, is this for me? Should I start taking it? How do I take it? What's it going to do for me? Where does somebody start?
Yeah, well, we'll give a URL, but I'll break down, what kind of we see over like the first 3 months. And really we look at the first month on the product, and that's kind of what we recommend to give this a shot. We really see the first month, energy is one of them. The reality is if you're replacing some of your saturated fats with our olive oil, there are health benefits there. There are kind of weight loss benefits associated with swapping out a saturated fat with olive oil. And we even have a testimonial. First day video, the lady shares with me. She took the product in the morning, she recorded the video that night, and she pointed out that she didn't finish her cup of coffee. Right now, if you're a coffee drinker, like that's a big deal. I can tell you, I was a 2 to 3 cup of coffee person a day. I'm now a 1 cup a day, and honestly, like this isn't even done. Right? It's 1 o'clock here, so I really shouldn't even finish it because you shouldn't have caffeine after noon. That's my recommendation. But I probably will. But like I don't need it. Like I'm not. It's not the thing that drives my energy anymore. So you get that kind of energy. When you go into week 2. Often, here's one of the challenges, right? I mentioned our most consistent testimonial involves sleep. We, almost all of us, not Brian Johnson, because he's pretty, exacting with his sleep, but we all get like 30 minutes extra, an hour less, an hour extra, an hour less of sleep, right, every day. And I have so many instances where I've shared, so one example, lady in the office next to us, I ended up giving her some bottles because of her story, and I went back to her like 10 days later, and she was like, hey, I was like, have you noticed anything? And she felt so bad. Chris, I didn't really notice anything. And then I was like, well, how's your sleep? And her eyes got like Bambi big, all right? And she was like, oh, I'm waking up at 5:30 every day, kind of like my business coach. And she's ex-military. So like that's when she's supposed to be waking up. You just don't notice, right? Because sleep is just such a cyclic thing. Today's good, yesterday's better, today's about the same, right? So that's one of the consistent things. So really in month 2, we're looking at more of that consistent sleep. And then when you get into month 3, you're really just overall feeling better, right? Like I can't talk about inflammation. I can certainly talk about antioxidants. It's an amazing antioxidant working at, we believe, the mitochondrial level. So a lot of supplements are like, hey, we work at the cellular level. And they should be very proud of that because there's supplements that don't even work at that level. But we don't think we work at the cellular level. We believe we work at the subcellular level, at the level of the mitochondria. Again, reducing the negative impact of stressed mitochondria. And so you see that. And I'll tell you, we get... it's kind of fun. People are like, hey, I've been on subscription. I haven't really noticed anything. I'm canceling. I think the last one I got was like a month ago. So I'm canceling and then they go off it. In this case, it was only 5 days, but usually it's 10 days and they're like, oh, okay. I would like to get back on subscription and I will never stop taking your product again. Like that, it's that level of impact. And I'll share one other story because it has the kind of same 3-month time frame. Gwen is our largest distributor here in Houston, and she originally ordered the product for her dog with no intent to take the product. She noticed such a profound difference in her dog that she decided to take the product. And I like to pause here. That's fun. I like to pause here for the dog because, if you're hearing about this new thing, you should be thinking, I wonder how much of a role placebo takes. And I say how much because placebo affects everything. Like it affects medications, supplements, your workouts. If you're convinced like it's going to do something for you, it actually does something for you. Placebo is everywhere. So you should be thinking how much of a placebo impact is here. But there is no placebo effect with dogs. Like the irony is that they're not smart enough to go, oh, I got my little dropper today, so I'm gonna have more energy. Anyway, so she knows this profound difference in her dog. And I did an interview with her and she said, hey, Chris, if you had asked me at the 3-month mark, have I noticed anything? My initial response would have been no. And then she goes, but I stopped and I took stock of my life. I was working later, right? I was getting more work done. I was waking up earlier. I was never a morning person. And then arguably the worst testimonial about a supplement you will ever hear. This is not in any of our literature. She cleaned her garage. Now, it's kind of funny, right? Like we don't have, hey, clean your garage on our product. But the garage is a big project, right? If you've ever had a garage that you need to clean, it could have emotional baggage in there. It's an all-day thing. It's hot, sweaty. Like if there's any reason to not do it, then you end up not doing it. So she cleaned her garage. So that just gives you some sort of kind of time frame of what people will notice.
That's amazing. Okay, so someone would take one serving per day in the morning for at least 90 days to really get to see the impact of what's going on with their health changes or sleep.
Yeah, and you'll notice things sooner, but that's where we see that kind of the peak performance.
Okay, awesome. Well, I know I have to wrap up here. If you have an extra 1 minute, then I would love to do a quick speed round.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, okay.
So I get to answer each question with 1 minute, or we got to answer them all in 1 minute?
First thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Not even related to product or health necessarily.
Okay.
Just for fun. All right. If you could give yourself advice 10 years ago, what would it be?
Make mistakes faster. Like make them bigger and faster, right? Because you really only learn. Don't be afraid of mistakes. You're a better person by making mistakes faster. I mean, be as smart as you can, but still make them faster.
Yeah, that's great advice. We talked a lot about stress today. So what is your favorite thing for stress reduction?
Interesting. Exercise has always been something that will relieve stress. I remember way back teenage years, high school, I would go to my mom and ask permission at like 9 o'clock to go jog around the block, right? Not recommended, but teenagers actually, you can do all sorts of things when you're a teenager and get away with it. But I just remember that being a great stress relief. So for me, that has been a great stress relief. I work very hard to control my mornings, right? So they're not filled with like stressful answering emails or whatever. I take the kids to work. I get a workout in, whether that's stressful or not, right? And so I'll manage that based on my stress load, as you heard. Those are like control that morning so you control how the day starts.
Okay. What is the best thing that you've purchased in the last year that cost you less than $200?
Wow, the best thing that I'm not a big purchaser. I don't purchase a lot of stuff. Wow, I'll say something maybe a little bit weird. I was having tender Achilles issues, and I tried a new technology by a company called NewFit, which is the Newbie device, and it's a DC current. I had the opportunity to interview the founder, Garrett Salpeter. Yeah, Garrett Salpeter. And what it does is it actually reprograms your neuromuscular interactions, right? So it brings the amperage up high enough so that your muscles start, reacting to it. And then you just move in that space. So you teach your neuromuscular system that what previously felt like danger and we should, lock up so that we end up causing problems. Like, hey, this isn't actually dangerous. That's my kind of description of it. Those sessions were probably 100 a pop. I probably did 8 of them, so I'm breaking your rules in some way, but I think that's one of the better things that I've done.
Hold up, let's address a common mistake that I see way too often, which is not getting enough quality protein. It is crucial for rebuilding tissues, supporting hormone health, and boosting your energy and mood. But here's the thing, not all protein sources are created equal. That's where Equip Prime Protein steps in. It's crafted from 100% grass-fed beef isolate, and this protein powder is free from fillers, dairy, and unnecessary additives, making it a powerhouse for anybody who is serious about their health. It's also perfectly suited for those on an AIP diet, paleo diet, or any clean eating nutrition plans, and it's designed to support gut health, muscle repair, and hormone balancing without the bloating or digestive stress that's commonly associated with other protein powders. Plus, it actually tastes good and it blends easily into smoothies, coffee, or even baked goods. My favorite flavors are the chocolate and the cinnamon roll, and I love making protein pancakes with these. If you're serious about healing and feeling your absolute best, don't let a protein deficiency slow you down. Use my link in the show notes or enter code NHR15 at checkout to save 15% on all Equip food products. That's NHR15 at checkout and click the link in the show notes. Now let's get back to the show. Okay. This is with a specific person or?
So the device, you really need to be, it was with a physiotherapist here
Okay.
in Houston.
Okay. Very cool. All right. Last question. If you could leave the listeners with one tip that they could implement this week to help them live a healthier, happier life, what would it be?
I just started doing this. So I'll tell you, with this device, oh, that's my wife. With this device, it is now in my hall, right? So I'm leading this longevity fast track kind of training session, 8 weeks. And on the week of sleep, so what I do is I actually go to bed and I do Wordle in bed and I do connections in bed. I don't know if you've ever played those kind of fun little brain games. And then I walk outside and I plug in my phone and I go back inside. I do a 2 to 3 minute journal in the morning, 2 to 3 minute journal in the evening. And I actually read a book. And like that will like people think this doom scrolling is relaxing and it's like it's definitely a checkout. Like you're checking out. Actually, I was talking this morning with my trainer, and he was like, "What he'll do with his kids? Hey, you were just on that device for an hour. Tell me one thing you remember, right?
Wow.
Tell me one thing you remember. Like this is you do it. I know. I do it. Like right. You're on it for an hour. What do you remember? What's actually coming in? And then you'll like this one. I shared this with my kids. There's 2 young girls talking with each other, and they said, "You know what? We will be the first generation who has more memories of other people than ourselves." Right? Because you spend the whole day scrolling, and my teenagers can do it. And when I was a teenager, I came home and watched TV, but I also went outside. Like, so you spend the whole day scrolling. What do you remember? And what, like, other people's experiences? Like, figure out anything you can do to put that device down, and improve your sleep by putting it out of your bedroom. And by the way, I took an old phone that's in airplane mode as my alarm clock, right? Because that's a lot of people are like, oh, but I need the alarm clock. It's got to be right next to the bed. By the way, when they're plugged in next to your bed, they're also emitting EMFs. That's not good. Yep. But take everyone has an old cell phone, put it in airplane mode, and now that's your alarm clock. And you don't use it to scroll. You don't use it for anything. It is just an alarm clock. Hopefully you get an old, like I have my son's really old one. It would be so slow I couldn't scroll anyway. So, so yeah, that's my advice. Get your cell phone out of your bedroom.
Absolutely. And not only is that scrolling numbing and kind of dissociative, but it's right before you go to bed, you're starting to go into more of this like meditative state, right? Your brainwaves start changing, and what we're putting into our brains and what we're thinking about right before bed, that stuff goes deeper into our subconscious. It's like you're programming your mind with whatever you're reading or watching. And so I always encourage people, like, be very careful with what information you're putting into your mind during that time too.
It's one of the best times to do affirmations, right?
Yes.
And so that's part of my little journaling. And this is a tip on journaling. Make it so short and easy that you don't miss it. Like that there's no excuse to do less than a 2-minute of journal, right? In the morning and in the evening. And add super short affirmations right before you go to sleep. Do you want to go to sleep shuffling on whatever I would say dances, but it's not even dances anymore, right? Like mine has shifted politically because I'm probably like paying attention to that stuff. But I think a lot of people's is just not going to be healthy. I mean, maybe there's some fitness people out there who like all they get is fitness all the time. And if that's true, at least that's healthier than what I'm getting, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah. Well, this is wonderful. Please share where people can find you. And I think we also have a discount code for the listeners as well.
Yeah, if they're interested in trying the product, we made a URL for your audience, myvitalc.com/NHR. So that's for Natural Health Rising. So myvitalc.com/NHR. When you go there will be a $15 coupon. It's a code that you got to go there to grab. There's also, I did a longevity summit. I interviewed 55 experts in longevity, including Ben Greenfield, Dave Asprey, Stephen Gundry, 52 other amazing people, and I compiled 18 biohacking tips. So for your email, you can get that, and that's absolutely free. And then we've got a 2, 3, and 6-month version if you're interested in trying that. At the very bottom, I'm very proud of our book. So I have my book, Live Longer and Better. You can get it on Amazon for I think it's $19.99 or $95, whatever it is. On the page, you can get that same book. So it's the story of the ESS60 molecule, some of my learnings in the longevity space For $10 extra, I'll autograph it. So there's a button just to buy the book, and then for $10 extra, I'll autograph it. 100% of that autograph fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad. You may remember a movie called The Sound of Freedom, which is an amazing movie about a horrible topic, which is child sex trafficking. Operation Underground Railroad is doing a great job of getting that off of our planet. And so 100% of that signature fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad.
It's amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Chris.
Thank you, Rachel. This is awesome.
If you're tired of your health issues dictating your life and you're ready to explore functional medicine labs and holistic health practices, this message is for you. At Natural Health Rising, our clients have defied the odds, naturally improving conditions like multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, EOE, Graves' disease, Hashimoto's, lupus, digestive issues, hormone imbalances, and more. Imagine reclaiming your energy and mental clarity, getting rid of pain and inflammation, enjoying time with your loved ones, engaging in your favorite hobbies again, and eating with confidence, knowing exactly which foods benefit your health. If you're ready to feel less stressed and stop the endless cycle of doctor's visits with no clear answers, then it's time to take the first step towards a healthier, happier life. Apply for a free health consultation today and just use the link in the show notes, choose a date that works for you, fill out a short form, and you'll be on your way to discussing how to holistically heal your body with me or a member on my team. I look forward to helping you transform your health and reclaim your life. Thank you so much for joining me on the Natural Health Rising podcast. I hope this episode empowered you to take action and take control of your health and gave you the tools you need to improve your health naturally. If you found value in today's conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with someone that you care about so that they can live a healthier, happier life too. Remember, the information provided in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any illness or medical condition. If you're looking for personalized support to finally get to the root cause of your health struggles, I work with clients worldwide using functional lab testing, custom health protocols, and one-on-one support. Just visit the link in the show notes to book a free health consultation with me or someone on my team so that we can see what's possible for you. Thank you for listening and keep striving to become your healthiest, happiest self. See you in the next episode.